first give an introduction about the technical and scientific work that we did, and then we will conclude with a movie that gives again a summary, like a take-home message prepared by Martin as part of the team. I'll start first with the scientific motivation, but also a collaborative motivation that led to this study. The first scientific one is the limits, as already mentioned in the previous presentation by Dario, the limits of current evolution robotics approaches. They've been extensively used in mobile robots, swarm robots, but also individual robots. But the issue is that when you deal with complex tasks, multi-agent tasks in some cases, or a task that requires the activation of different degrees of freedoms, you get limited results. So we start with this limitation. We also have done some parallel work just on mobile robotic experiments, in particular with a simulation model of the Mars rover. And the idea was to use, suggested in the literature, but also as part of the work here at ICT, to try to combine together our approach in simulation-based robotics and autonomous robotics. And the approach developed here through the PACMO libraries and the research behind it on the island model to try to go beyond this complexity barrier. Complexity barrier, you will see later, will take it to two directions. One is the robustness of the controller in terms of, for example, dealing with different types of behaviors. And the other one is really capacity to control actively the sensory motor loop. So the robot will have to control its own visual camera to decide where the landmark is and how to deal also with local information, such as different types of terrains. So this led to the study as part of this 4-month plus collaboration. And the first was a technical one, a software development objective, that is to integrate the PACMO libraries, our simulator, and of course to extend it to allow the full parallel implementation of the island model on the Mars rover. Then we carried out a few experiments on the, let's say, the benchmarking comparison between the island model versus standard genetic algorithms, including comparison with different types of terrains. And the third part was to try to go beyond this complexity barrier by looking at the active vision. This is a growing field in robotics, in evolutionary robotics. So let me first give you an overview of some of the results in terms of software development and the methodology. So we put together the parallel and the island model implementation in the PACMO, and we extended it in terms of software development with some additional code and programs as part of our Mars simulator. This allowed, as you can see from the next picture, the development of a central controller that you would use to set up a set of parameters. This could be parameters for the controller of the robot. In this case, we also use a neural network. Parameters for, as you can see here, for the environment. So you can manipulate the number of rocks, valleys, and shape of the terrains. And once you have your central controller with a graphic user interface that can launch the application, this is basically applies a full parallel system where individual processing components are testing of individual robots in specific environment configurations. And of course, you have the option to do the graphic rendering, for example, in testing or later stages of the simulation. And here we give an overview of some screenshots of the behavior, the evolved behavior of some of the robots. The rays that you see there, these are, you can have infrared sensors linked to your camera. In later simulation, the active vision one, you do process an actual image rather than infrared sensor information. These are more local perception of the basically obstacles, terrain and obstacles. And you will see later then the implementation of this to the active vision task. The study was really organized in 3 sets of experiments. The first one was the benchmarking. Basically, we wanted to see what was the actual advantage, in which context the island model does actually produce an acceleration of an improvement of the performance or acceleration of the performance in terms of computational time, for example. The second test was to try the robustness of the solution evolved. So we evolved a robot in specific environment configurations, and we tested with environments with a different configuration of the rocks, different configuration of the valleys, and different types of obstacles. And then the active vision, where we again extend the robustness to different terrain, environmental conditions. So we have slippery, icy terrains, we have sandy terrains, and we have standard ground. plus we have a goal-directed behavior with a landmark to reach. Let's have an overview of some of the results and some of the setup of these studies. So this is the setup of the environment in the benchmarking simulation before we tested the different environments. And you see there is a combination of valleys here, holes, and plus rocks in terms of obstacles. You already saw the setup of the sensors, and you can see here that in some of the simulations we can actually use the FOVEA, the agent, that focuses on the center of the image, and this information will be fed directly to the network, to the robot, without any pre-processing. The neural controller will do the pre-processing to integrate local sensor, infrared sensors, visual sensors, in the active vision also active control of the camera to explore the environment to produce the movement. The output in this case is the movement of the robot. And just briefly, one of the main results, at least in terms of summary here, you can see that the performance on the island, we compare here one island, basically non-standard genetic algorithm with no separation of islands and migration, versus 8 islands with ring-type migration. So 2 neighboring islands can exchange genetic material at certain stages. And you can see that in the later stage of the evolution, when you can compare the performance of the best solutions in each population, you get the islands model outperforms the standard genetic algorithm. While if you look at the results of the average population, the result is less clear. But what's important here that you do get this finding of better solutions, at least the best solution, that this would be the case when you were going to do, for example, off-light design of your solutions. And again, an overview here of the active vision results. This is the environment with ice, slippery terrain here, sandy terrain here, standard in the middle. This light source is like a target. And you will see now the actual movement of some of the evolved solutions. You see the robot here, the implementation of the active vision at the first stage of the study was really active vision through the whole body. So the robot needs to move the actual wheels to look at different parts of the environment until it can identify the location of the landmark. And through experience during the evolution, the robot will actually also identify different types of terrains. This is another solution. So in this case, the performance of the robot is still active perception, visual perception, plus local integration. We don't have the movie here, but the latest results, also when you allow the robot to actually control the camera, pan tilt of the camera, without the need to really explore the environment with the wheels, the robot will simply actively find the landmark and then go straight towards the solution. During the evolution, we explored the different types of environments. And now I'll summarize some of the main results. I'll refer them briefly to what we think the future directions are before we show the movie. So there was one major result in the actual collaborative exploration of a new software tool, open source, between the ACT, PACMO, and the Primo simulator. And then tests, as I said before, more systematic tests on studying the condition where islands are important, and of course preliminary results on the active vision component. And these are the publications that we have co-authoring during the last 6 months, and I would like to highlight the success of the team here, in particular Barry and Martin, who went to the Exeter postgraduate conference in computer science, and they received the best paper award and are enjoying some of the money. The principal investigator didn't see any money from the prize. And I'd like to spend, before the movie, really 1 minute on which directions can we follow as part of this. So what we learned and where we will go if we had the possibility to continue the collaboration, for example. So one is to focus more on the active vision, in particular integrating goal-directed behavior. So if you have a landmark, the home base to return, what kind of strategy will you use? Another direction that is consistent with the previous studies, collaborative multi-robot collaboration, autonomous collaboration. One important direction we would like to develop further our approach and test it on a physical robot, for example, some of the platforms available here at ESA. And also, one follow-up of the study is a collaboration with SciSys and ESA based in Harwell for a new project, a Star Target project, to test rovers with optimized velocity and behavior. And now, while you think, to give you time to think about questions, I'm going to show the movie that Marty prepared as part of this study.